going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, boys? What's going on, world?
What's up, everybody?
All right, so we are recapping week 2, giving you a little waiver wire pickups, stuff like that. But first, don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our VIP content. This will give you access to DFS info and a season, and it'll also give you access to the cheat codes, which will be updated monthly throughout the year. So check those out, and also look for us on Fantasy Life app. We'll be doing start-sit questions throughout the year. So, make sure you check us out on the Fantasy Life. And if you're listening to the podcast, hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. So, first, we're going to start off with the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right. So, starting it off, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Drew Brees is believed to be dealing with a ligament issue in his throwing thumb. This apparently is going to keep him out, possibly 6 weeks is the time frame. So if you have Drew Brees, be looking elsewhere. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Ben Roethlisberger obviously is going to have season-ending elbow surgery. So if you were starting Big Ben, make sure you take him out of your lineup as well. James Conner it was undergoing tests. He underwent tests today on his knee, but I believe he was on a radio station, said everything was okay. So he's looking to be back out there next week. LaShawn McCoy suffered an ankle injury late in Sunday's Week 2 victory. Damian Williams in that game also had a knee injury. So pay attention to the Chiefs starting running back situation, because right now they both are injured.
They don't need a running back situation.
Yeah, that's for sure. Giants coach Pat Shurmur declined to name Eli Manning the Giants' Week 3 starter. Could it be Daniel Jones time?
Yep.
Sports Illustrated's Robert Klemko reports Antonio Brown is facing sexual misconduct allegations from a second accuser stemming from an incident in 2017. Dolphins coach Brian Flores named Ryan Fitzpatrick Miami starter for Week 3 against Dallas. NFL.com's Ian Rappaport reports Cowboys wide receiver Michael Gallup will miss 2 to 4 weeks with a meniscus issue. Coach Frank Reich confirmed to reporters Monday that Adam Vinatieri will continue to work as the team's place kicker for Week 3 matchup against the Falcons. Adam Vinatieri has just been terrible for the first couple games this season.
Yeah, he's been bad.
Coach John Gruden told reporters Monday that running back Josh Jacobs has been dealing with a groin issue. Coach Cliff Kingsbury told reporters Monday that running back David Johnson is fine to play for Week 3 against the Panthers. Running back for the Bills, Devin Singletary, is considered day-to-day with a hamstring injury. John Gruden also told reporters on Monday that wide receiver Tyrell Williams is dealing with a hip pointer. Colts linebacker Darius Leonard is in the concussion protocol. He got done the game, started experiencing symptoms after the game, and they threw him in the protocol. Marcus Mariota with a quad injury was listed as a did not practice for Titans practice on Monday. Remember, this is the Thursday night game this week. So very, very short turnaround for Mariota. NFL.com's Ian Rappaport reports that Alshon Jeffrey's status is in doubt for Eagles' Week 3 matchup against the Lions. Coach Jason Garrett told reporters Monday that wide receiver Devin Smith obviously will play more with Michael Gallup being injured. Adam Schefter reports Jalen Ramsey has requested a trade following the Jaguars' Week 2 loss to the Texans that involved a sideline altercation with Coach Doug Marrone. They are asking for a first-round pick and more in exchange for Jalen Ramsey.
Pay it.
For sure.
The Eagles need to pay it.
Yeah.
can have Darby.
104.5 is the zone. Paul Kaharski reports Marcus Mariota's quad injury is not serious. So, yes, him not, practicing is not that big of a deal. Coach Kyle Shanahan said D Ford is still hurting as he plays through knee tendonitis. And Jason Lockhan-Ford from CBS reports the Dolphins trade of defensive back Minkah Fitzpatrick is likely to be wrapped up at some point on Tuesday. So there you have it. That is the news for the day. Anything you guys want to get into specifically that we're not going to touch on in the games?
No, not really.
Not really.
I think most of it everybody pretty much heard over the list. I mean, everything was out and about. There's nothing new and shocking. Most of the guys are wait and see, and we know about the Big Ben and the Drew Brees situation. So the Adam Vinatieri thing was he came out yesterday. If anyone didn't hear, basically said I'm gonna speak to everybody on Monday, and a lot of speculation about his retirement was being made because he has been really terrible. I think they said he missed 4 extra points and 2 or 3 field goals this year. He
literally has. I've watched both Colts games, and it's
painful.
Yes, it's rough.
But so I mean, the coaching staff never said anything about him, being forced out of them looking for another kicker. He's the one that made the comments and said that he will be speaking to the press on Monday. And then they said, well, is it Monday your day off? And then he said something, I just quote here, and he said, yes, it is, but you will hear from me tomorrow. So I guess it was just in the heat of the moment after, he had a rough, I mean, they still got the win, but he had another rough games, and not very Adam Vinatieri like. He's probably, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, they should have won the first game. I mean, I love Adam Vinatieri. Yeah, I think he's been great for the league, but they shouldn't have lost that game. He lost that game for them against the Chargers. I mean, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't even gone to overtime. He missed I think it was 2 extra points and 2 field goals in that game.
Yep.
I mean, there's no reason they should have lost that game. So the Colts should be 2-0. As much as everybody said, was so worried about, when Luck retired that it was going to be a big issue. Brissett has looked good. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, I haven't watched those games.
I said that. I think Jacoby Brissett is a very good. Like he's not your Mahomes Watson type that's going to sling it all over the field, but he's very serviceable. He's a game manager. He doesn't really turn the ball over like that. I think Jacoby Brissett is fine, especially, they seem like more of a team that seems like they want to, at this point, just want to run the ball a lot and play good defense.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get into the week 2 matchups and our breakdowns. So basically how we're going to do this is we're going to break the games down. One of us is going to break the game down. Obviously, the other is going to, we can chime in at any point. And then at the end of that game, we'll give our waiver wires from that game. All right?
Sounds good.
That way we knock it all out at the same time for you guys. Started off 49ers and Bengals.
49ers Bengals. So the 49ers Bengals game, the Bengals look rough. So the Bengals offensive line is just bad. There's no other way to put it. So, I would tell you that, I know everybody's worried about Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon made some cuts in the backfield in this game that made me think he's going to be fine. You know what I mean? It's starting off rough, but you got to remember he's got an ankle injury. It's been bothering him. So that's a big part of it. But I didn't see, last year, this offensive line didn't get worse than last year. It's basically just as bad. And, he'll have some games. You'll see. Coming real soon, he's going to have some big games. So don't give up on Mixon. Don't be trying to trade him for pennies on the dollar because that's what you're going to get right now. You're going to get pennies on the dollar. Keep him. But, for the rest of this game, Deebo Samuel is a guy that I toted, Kev toted. We talked about. Dan even said that he liked Deebo coming out of college. Deebo looked great in this game. Deebo made some catches. He was catching some screens, and really, just watching the game, Kyle Shanahan had a really good. He had a really good game plan. He went into this game knowing that the Bengals were a team that were not going to be able to defend the screen very well, and they didn't. The screen was killing them all game long. They were throwing it to the left and right side of the field, and guys were just getting open. Basically, the 49ers defense, I told you guys I really like this defense, and I'll tell you what, they shut the Bengals down completely. It wasn't until really, that one drive in the first quarter where they scored the touchdown with Tyler Eifert, in the back of the end zone. Basically, they thought Mixon was going to run it. Nobody was on Eifert. He was just wide open. And other than that, they didn't really score another touchdown until later on in the fourth quarter with, John Ross, who caught a 66-yard slant pass, just ran it into the end zone. At that point, the game was well in hand. It was 40 to 10 at that point. So they were just getting crushed. So on the Bengals side of the ball, definitely better days to come. They were just manhandled by a better team. When they started getting down, they basically tried to run a little bit, and it wasn't working. So they, tried to pass, and that wasn't working, and it was just a bad game. On the 49er side of the ball, Deebo Samuel's definitely go pick him up if he's available on your waiver wire. And, Jimmy Garoppolo looked good in this game. There was a broken pass in the beginning of the game to, Marquise Goodwin, and he was just wide open, so for I think it was like a 36-yard touchdown. And the rest of it was just screen passes and bubble screens and just things like that kept the ball moving. So, Matt Breida looked good in this game, but Matt Breida always looks good, when he gets the workload. And, the thing that killed him a little bit was the touchdowns went to every other running back on the team, Mostart scored a touchdown. Jeff, whatever the hell his last name is.
Wilson.
Yeah, yep. Scored a touchdown, 2 touchdowns. So it was just unfortunate for Breida, but he could have had a huge game if this wasn't such a blowout.
All right. So, anything you want to add to that, Dan? I think I'm pretty good with.
Yeah, no, it was good to see Garoppolo, have a big game. We knew he was capable of it, and he just, he needed it's kind of like a tune-up game. He needed a really bad defense to beat up on, and he took advantage of it. So, I think moving forward, Garoppolo is going to be, Niners look good offensively and defensively so far. So I think, definitely keep an eye on Garoppolo.
All right. So the next game we're going to get into is the Chargers-Lions game. I'll start it off with the Chargers side of the ball. The running backs, I think, both look pretty good. This is a game, honestly, where the Chargers lost this game more than the Lions won this game. There was literally 2 missed field goals. They had 2 touchdowns on the same drive that were both, one I think was like a 30-yard run, another was like a 20-yard pass. Both got called back for holding penalties. And then on that same drive, Eckler fumbled at the goal line, and, the Lions recovered. And that's kind of what kept the Lions in it, because at that time, Chargers were up, I think, a score or up 4 points, and they just kept getting into the area, into scoring territory, but you just never cash in, and just kept the Lions in it, and the Lions wound up making a play at the end and wound up winning them the game. It was pretty good game to watch despite the low score. I actually really enjoyed watching this game. Phillip Rivers wasn't the greatest. I don't think he wasn't bad for fantasy, or he wasn't good for fantasy, but he wasn't, a bad football quarterback in this game until the last play of the game. He forced a throw to Keenan Allen, and, in the double coverage, and wound up getting intercepted in the end zone when they were in field goal range. I think maybe he just felt like, he had to force it in because they had missed 2 field goals, and he didn't want to take his chance with his kicker going out there again. But, he's still, at that point, you got to rely on the field goal. But other than that, I thought Eckler played, pretty well. And, the yards per carry doesn't really show it, but, he did have a couple calls back that, like I said, the Chargers just killed themselves with penalties and stuff like that all game here. Justin Jackson looked really good in this game. He had, 7 for 59, 8.4 a carry, and he had a long touchdown that got called. Called back. Justin Jackson might have been over 100 yards in this game, if that touchdown doesn't come back. Keenan Allen, watching Keenan Allen, I watched this a lot because this was something I was curious about going into the game. They literally threw Darius Slay on Keenan Allen the whole game, and Keenan Allen ate him alive until the last play. He ate him alive. It was fun to watch Keenan Allen out there because you really see if that dude is healthy, how good he really is, man. Keenan Allen is literally one of the best receivers in the NFL. Mike Williams made some really, really good catches in this game. But, only got 5 targets, 3 for 83. He had the knee injury coming in, but the 2 of those 3 catches were actually really good in this game. Eckler, was heavy in the receiving game, obviously, and, 6'4", 67, and, it pretty much, made his day a whole lot better, especially considering the rushing. He only had 60 yards, did get in the end zone running. From the Lions side of the ball, you had Stafford. To me, Stafford looked really, really good at times and then really bad at times. He had one terrible throw. He, tried to throw a deep ball down the field to Marvin Jones, and it was a single high safety, and he literally threw it right to where the single high safety was playing. It was just a terrible throw. I thought Carrion looked really good early, and then the second half they kind of shut him down, and then he wound up, leaving the game in the fourth quarter with an injury. So, it was kind of rough for Carrion because he really started off. He was looking pretty good out there. C.J. Anderson came in. He was really ineffective. But Detroit in the passing game, I thought played, was really, really, it was much different than the first game. First game was heavy T.J. Hawkinson, heavy, Danny Amendola. This game was way more Galladay and Marvin Jones. So, they got most of the targets. Galladay had 10 targets, caught 8. Marvin Jones, 6 targets, caught 5. Amendola only had 1 target. Hawkinson was literally like, you didn't even know when this dude was on the field. Jesse James was getting more catches than he did. Jesse James actually got targeted more than Hawkinson. So I know if you picked up Hawkinson, you were, a little disappointed to see that output. But all in all, this, like I said, I thought was a very good game to, watch despite the low score, just because the Chargers were moving the ball so well. They just never were able to cash in.
Trevor Siemian is down, just so everybody knows. That
just
looked
got
terrible.
The Fantasy Life notification.
I was
waiting. From the waiver wire in this game, I don't think there's too much to add. You could take a peek at C.J. Anderson if he's out there and Carrion may miss his time. I haven't heard anything today about him. He wasn't in our news, so obviously he's fine. Maybe he just had a little tweak and had to come out at the end of the game. But other than that, if you picked up T.J. Hawkinson, don't worry about it too much. But just be caution. Hopefully you have another tight end because, you are going to have to pay attention to how they're using him, because in this game it was totally different in week 1. All right.
Yep. I don't really have anything to add to that game.
Yeah, I'm good too.
All right. Next game, Vikings and Packers.
All right. So this game got off to an extremely fast start and looked like it was going to be a shootout for sure. But I mean, really, after that first quarter, the defense has picked up, and it just was 3-and-out after 3-and-out. It slowed down. It was back and forth, and it's besides a couple of big plays. Cook ripped off a huge run, and Diggs had a huge a 49-yard touchdown. But other than that, I mean, it was definitely a ball possession type game, and it got boring here for a while. But what the biggest takeaways from this was that Cook looked awesome, and then Cousins just made mistakes again, and he's off to a rough start. I mean, he's not really. He's got these great receivers, Thielen and Diggs, and he's not really given much of an opportunity to. I mean, they're not. They didn't really look that great to begin with either. Thielen definitely looked like he was getting open more than Diggs, but Diggs was absent. Besides that one play, he was completely absent. On the Green Bay side, though, like I said, Aaron Jones, big bounce back game for him. Devontae Adams had a really good game, 7 catches, 106. Allison caught his first touchdown of the year. Stats weren't great. He only had 25 yards, but it was nice to see him get involved in the touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, it's just Minnesota does, their defense they remind me of the Bears right now. Their defense is playing incredible, aside from that first quarter, which, like I said, it would look like it was going to get out of control. But their defense is playing incredible right now, and their offense really, aside from a couple long plays to keep them somewhat in the game, just not helping. And this Minnesota offense, supposed to be one of the better offenses coming in this year, and they're not showing it right now. But as far as Green Bay goes, I mean, it's tough against the Minnesota defense, but he looked. The first quarter he looked good, but then he just it wasn't what he missing throws, but he just wasn't. He didn't just look Aaron Rodgers like. I think they once they started riding Jones a little bit, he was being utilized more, and he was definitely being productive more. But it was definitely a very hard-nosed fought battle of the division where Green Bay came out on top. Waiver wire thing, I mean, not really much you can talk about. All your main guys are the ones that got action. Scandling didn't really, he had 3 catches for 19 yards. Jimmy Graham didn't even get a target this game. Kyle Rudolph, 3 catches, 9 yards, irrelevant. Chad Beebe, 1 big catch. I don't think he's worth picking up just for 1 big catch. He wasn't a touchdown, but I mean, other than that, Madison had a couple nice runs to give Cook a spell, but really, it's not much on the waiver wire for this game.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Steve?
No, I was just happy to see Aaron Jones play up to his capability, and I said last week that he, dominated the snaps in the, beginning of last game, and he showed off in the beginning of the game last week that he could be productive, or this week, and he could be productive, and I think they just rolled with him.
All right, and all I'm going to add to that game is I think Kirk Cousins look absolutely horrible. So next we will get into the barn burner, the Patriots and Dolphins. What a game.
This is going to be really quick, guys. The Dolphins, you literally can't play anyone on that team. Nobody. There's not a player on that team you can even consider.
They don't even want to play on that team.
Dude, it was so bad. It was so bad. I don't think I've ever seen, and you guys heard me, me and Dan, when we did that podcast, Dan was like, yeah, their offensive line must be really bad because you're sighing. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, this is the worst offensive line I've ever seen. It really is. Not only are they not getting pushed, they're getting pushed backwards on every play. I've never seen where a team, hikes the ball and immediately gets pushed 2 yards back into the backfield, and the running backs have no lanes, period. Ryan Fitzpatrick is just a dumpster fire. It's turning into a forest fire. This dude just some of the interceptions he throws are just so bad. It's not even funny. So he threw an interception to Stephon Gilmore. He tried to, I don't even know who the hell he was trying to throw to, honestly. He should have just ran out of bounds and just said, okay, this play ain't going nowhere. But instead, he decides to throw across his body directly into Stephon Gilmore's hands, who runs it back for a, 37-yard touchdown return. This team is just unbelievably bad. On the Patriots side of the ball, you can't even be mad about anybody else. So we told you to start all the Patriots. We had no idea that the Patriots defense was going to score 2 touchdowns. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. But not only that, you can't predict that. And not only that, the Dolphins literally were getting sacked on every play. It was just, we thought that it was going to be bad, and we said it. We said that. But this game was truly, truly terrible. There's no other way to put it. I tried to find something to talk about with the Dolphins. There's nothing at all. On the Patriots side of the ball, they were just winning by so much that, they ran the hell out of the ball with everyone. Sony Michel got 20 touches, 80 yards and a touchdown, which was great. That's kind of what we're hoping for, with Sony. But, other than that, there's not really too much in this game that I can really break down to tell you, because the Dolphins are not they're not they're not a real team. They're like they might lose to college teams. Like, I'm serious. I know people say that, and the worst teams ever. Like, this might be the worst team ever. It's that bad.
Clemson takes them down.
Dude, Clemson might take them down. I'm serious. It's that bad. They are that bad. It's just
that one play to Kellen Balazs. I just shook my head. It literally it's like he handed off the ball,
dude,
to what was it, Jamie Collins for the touchdown?
Yeah.
I think that's who got it.
It's just so bad, dude. It literally is just really bad. The running game just tore them up. They couldn't stop anything. Tom Brady, he finished with 264 and 2 touchdowns in this game. But Antonio Brown, you kind of were happy that he looked okay. I mean, he had 8 targets in the game, and the first drive he had 3 catches. So really, other than that, he caught one other pass for a touchdown later on in I think it was the second quarter. He caught a touchdown. Rex Burkhead had I think it was like two targets, 2 catches, and he had 1 catch was like a screen play that he took for 38 yards. It's just, there's really nothing else in this game. There's nobody that I'm going to tell you to pick up, because there's really, nobody in this game that, you're going to pick up. Philip Dorsett, basically 3 for 39. And Tom Brady did his thing, but the defense just, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 89 yards and 3 touchdowns. Josh Rosen threw for 97 yards. Neither one of them. I'm sorry, 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions.
They didn't have
no touchdowns. Nobody had a touchdown on the team. It was a 0. Kenyon Drake ran the ball 6 times for 19 yards, and Mark Walton was the best running back with 3 carries for 15 yards. And that's it. Like, there's really nothing. Preston Williams, I would say he's a lone bright spot. But when you throw the ball many times as this team had to throw the ball, they threw the ball almost 40 times. You know what I mean? Somebody has to catch them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just pure numbers. It's just bad. The Dolphins are bad. The Patriots you didn't see anything from the Patriots that you didn't expect, and the Dolphins are terrible. So that's it for this game.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, if you don't be worried. But here's what, I'll ask you, Steve, because you watched the game. 2 things. How did you think Antonio Brown looked? And do you think there is reason to worry about Josh Gordon with Antonio Brown there?
No, I think if you're worried about Josh Gordon because of Antonio Brown being there, you didn't watch the game. There was no need to throw the ball in this game. Like, the pass, like I said, Tom Brady in this game, the running backs were getting all kinds of, Rex Burkhead, like I said, 47 yards. James White had, I think, what is it? I'll check it out right now. 3 for 19. And then Julian Edelman got his normal 4 catches for 50 yards. You know what I mean? 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards is what he always gets. I mean, Josh Gordon, they just didn't need, there was a couple of times where they went deep to Josh, and Brady overthrew him by like a step or 2, but if he catches those balls, they're like 60-yard touchdowns. I mean, and it completely changes the way that Josh Gordon's totals look in this game. So, I'm not worried about Josh. I if anything, it makes me encouraged that Tom Brady is going to be really freaking good this year. Tom Brady is going to be really, really good this year. If he connects on that 60-yard pass to Josh Gordon, his numbers, he's 320 and 3 touchdowns. So, you know what I mean? He's just going to be, he had no reason to throw the ball, basically after the second half. You know what I mean? He was 20 for 28. So, I would definitely wouldn't worry about Josh. And Antonio looked very good. Antonio was getting out of breaks. Antonio's just, like we said, he's great. He's one of the best receivers ever to play the game, and he looked that way this weekend.
All right. So next, we will get into the Colts and Titans. This is another game I enjoyed watching. 2 teams I think that are very smash mouth at this point, and they played that way. So from the Colts side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Like, he's a good game manager. Only had 156 yards passing, but got 3 touchdowns on the day. I don't think you're going to see 3 touchdowns from Jacoby Brissett all that much, but he did a good job of managing the game. Not throwing too many interceptions. He did have 1, but it wasn't the worst interception in the world. So yeah, you're not starting Brissett, but I think having Brissett back there makes you a little bit more comfortable with guys like T.Y. Hilton and, Eric Ebron, just guys that you were drafted to be starters on that team. I think you could feel a little bit more comfortable knowing Brissett is, not a terrible quarterback. They really fed Marlon Mack in this game. Marlon Mack had 20 carries, only got 51 yards, but Evans on the Tennessee defense is an animal. Like, he was literally busting through the line on every handoff that they gave Marlon Mack. So there wasn't a lot of running room for Marlon Mack. He did wind up catching a couple balls out of the backfield, but this Tennessee defense I think is just for real. So I don't, not better days are ahead for Marlon Mack if he let you down this week. T.Y. Hilton gets the touchdown to salvage his day. 4 for 43. Like I said, this Tennessee defense is very legit. So, matchups like this, it's going to be tough to score, especially for a Colts team that's trying to play a little more ground and pound and just let Jacoby manage the game. These guys aren't going to get off like that. Eric Ebron does get in the end zone in a little shovel pass. It was nice to see him get in the end zone. Didn't really have a major day, 3 for 25. Paris Campbell winds up catching a touchdown. That was, his only target on the day, but, that was another thing that was good to see. I would like to see more of him, more usage with him before I picked him up, because, like I said, it was his only target. But, like I said, it was good to see, and I would like to see him used a little bit more. On the Titans side of the ball, Mariota was very similar. He's just a game manager. He just 19 for 28 and 154 and a touchdown. And, the touchdown was to an offensive lineman. He wasn't really taking deep shots down the field like that. This game was a lot of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry got 15 carries. And, the more I watch Derrick Henry, I think I've watched a couple of their games so far this season. I got both of their games to break down. And I'm starting to agree with you more, Steve. I really am. I like Derrick Henry the more I watch him, and he's starting to be a little bit more used out of the backfield. They did throw a swing pass to him today, yesterday, and it went right through his hands. But he did get 2 other catches in the game. But Derrick Henry, really, really is a solid running back right now, and definitely heavily used in this offense. Delaney Walker, was their highest targeted receiver and had their highest amount of yards, but this was more of a slugfest. These two teams are playing good defense right now, and they weren't really this wasn't a shootout type game. This was way more of a defensive battle where running and defense is what was going to win this game. In the end, the Colts pull it out with the touchdown to T.Y. Hilton. But like I said, this was like, if you like old school football, this was kind of an old school football game. It was just a lot of defensive, ground and pound, run the ball, and try to use as much clock as you can and play good defense on the other side. I will say I think the Colts defense, if they're not owned in your league, is a pretty good defense to own because they came to play. Tennessee's defense also, if they're not owned, they're another very good defense that I would go pick up. But outside of that, there's really not too much to add into this game from a waiver wire perspective because there was really no receivers. I will say if you own Marlon Mack, I think Jordan Wilkins is probably a good handcuff because I thought he looked really good, got the one long run. When Wilkins came into the game, it seemed like, the Titans kind of shied away and weren't really expecting Indy to run the ball. So, opened up that lane for him to have that, 55-yard run. But, when Mack was out there, they were just geared on Marlon Mack. So, outside of that, there's nothing more I can add.
Yeah, no, just that the AFC South looks like it's pretty much up for grabs. I mean, there's very evenly matched teams. A couple games went down to the wire, so definitely got to wait and see who I think it's definitely still Houston in the AFC South, but right now. I mean, there's don't count the Colts out and Tennessee out. I mean, even Jacksonville, they had that shot to win it in the end there. But yeah, it's just my takeaway from that game.
All right. So, Dan, why don't you get into the Cardinals and Ravens?
Cardinals and Ravens.
Great
Ravens
game.
came in with a 13-point favorite, and they pretty much had control of the whole game. Cardinals, made a push there at the end and made the score a little bit closer than what it was. But basically this game was the definition of the air raid offense. It was on display. Kyler Murray went for basically 350 yards. He did not have a touchdown or an interception. Once again, Kyler did not show off his legs. I think it's still going to come. But he definitely he was not airing the ball. He was dumping the ball off to he had Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald both went over 100 yards. They both broke a couple long ones. Keyshawn Johnson had one nice one, 31 yards. Even Michael Crabtree had a couple catches. He's still trying to work himself into the offense. David Johnson it's probably just a product of a bad offensive line, but David Johnson is having a really hard, time getting off this, even he's not catching balls, and we know David Johnson normally catches balls. He's great out of the backfield, but he had one reception for 0 yards. So I mean, they need to get him more involved in this offense if they want to start stringing together some wins here, because the team they got good coaching, they got the stud quarterback, and they have an all-pro running back. It's just it's a fit. I think it's a fit right now. I think they'll find their way. I think they'll have maybe a 7-9 type season. Well, they have a tie right now, so count that in there. But I think they're going to be slightly below mediocre. They still need to build some chemistry. First year coach, first year quarterback. Baltimore's playing better than people expected. They were down. They knew Baltimore was going to have a good defense and a good running game. Everyone wrote Lamar Jackson off. Everyone in the world except for Steve. He wrote an article about him and said this guy could be the cheat code. And week one, Lamar showed it with 5 passing touchdowns. Didn't need to do anything with the legs because they just he dominated through the air, and they still Ingram dominated on the ground. And this game was a little bit different. He still had his air. He had 272 and 2 touchdowns, but he broke off some runs. I mean, they had some design plays where Mark Ingram, because of his week last week and because Arizona's defense is not good up front, they were stacking the box, and there was a couple times where they Mark Ingram they just bootlegged Jackson out real slow, and as soon as he took off, he hit that corner a handful of times, and he was busting off 15-yard rushes left and right. He ended up with 16 and 120, which is that's a Lamar Jackson day. That's what we know we can see from him. The accuracy that he is showing is next level, because it's when he was at Louisville, we didn't we saw the legs, we didn't really see a ton of accuracy, we didn't see a ton of passing touchdowns. I mean, the year he won Heisman, he did have a lot, but he's just always been known as this, the Randall Cunningham, the Michael Vick. And if he keeps up any of this passing that he's been doing, actually pocket quarterback, this team's going to be tough, because Ingram didn't have a huge day, 13 carries, 47 yards. Nothing like last week, but he didn't need to. I mean, they got it done in all other aspects. Andrews had an incredible day. Had a beautiful touchdown down the sideline early in the game. He had 8 for 112 and a touchdown. I was worried about Brown. I have Brown on my bench because he only had limited snaps in week 1, but he was on the field much more this game, and he had 8 receptions for 86. So it looks like they're comfortable with Brown being in there, and it looks like even though he is a rookie, they're gonna utilize him. He's just he gets out of cuts so fast. He's just lightning quick. So that's basically it. I mean, like I said, the score looks close. The game wasn't really as close as the score indicated. I think Baltimore's defense had it in hand after they pretty much got up by 16.
Yep. Yeah. Larry Fitzgerald is still alive, y'all. Larry Fitzgerald.
sure.
Consistent.
Yeah. Larry
And,
Fitzgerald. That was one of our better calls. I definitely, we were definitely saying, Larry's going too late in drafts, and we were right. Larry looks like a go-to receiver in the NFL, and I'm happy to see it because I love Larry Fitzgerald.
And I was glad to see Christian Kirk get off because I was a big Christian Kirk believer before the season, and Christian Kirk had a day today, 6 for 114. Dan waiver wire.
Just the only thing I'm going to touch on with the waiver wire is, I mean, he's probably not available because we've been talking about it. But if Mark Andrews is sitting there for some reason in your waiver and people just people aren't picking him up because they have a tight end and they or they just don't really care, you got it. He is for sure Lamar's number one guy. I mean, normally besides last year with the Eagles with Carson Wentz or with anybody, Nick Foles and Carson Wentz with Ertz and obviously Mahomes and Kelsey, but these two have a chemistry, and I said that I think that this guy's got top 10 ability, and watching the game yesterday, he's just an awesome tight end.
Yep.
All right. So next game we are going to get into Bills and Giants.
Bills Giants. So Eli Manning needs to get benched. I'm sorry. He just watching this game, it is clear and evident. And don't get me wrong, Buffalo's defense is a very, very good defense. But he was just missing guys. You know what I mean? Buffalo, I felt a little bit like they took the Giants for granted. Like they kind of, especially in the beginning of that game, that first drive, I think they played very lackadaisical. Like, all we have to do is stop Saquon. And the Giants went right down the field. Yeah, yep. Yeah, the Giants went right down the field, like with no problem. Scored that first touchdown. The Saquon run.
Of course, Saquon.
Yep. But after that, the Bills tightened up, and Eli has had his time in the NFL, and they need to move on. They should have moved on after last season, and they chose not to. So this is what they get. It's tough to watch. It really is. If you're a Giants fan, I feel sorry for you guys as Giants fans because, they just need to give it up. I don't know why they won't, but they need to give it up. So, I'll start with the Bills side of the ball. Josh Allen looked very good in this game. Josh Allen was making some passes that even I was impressed with. He only threw the ball 30 times, but I think that's kind of what they want to do with him. I don't think they want him throwing the ball, 35, 40 times a game. 30 times, was good in this game. The one thing that bothered me a little bit was how much Frank Gore was being used. Frank Gore got 19 touches in this game. He ended up scoring a touchdown. It was his actually first rushing touchdown in like 2 years or something ridiculous. But, Frank Gore just... He's a plotter, man. 19 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. His long of the day was a 9-yarder. He had like a 12-yarder called back on a holding call. But, there was nothing really in the running game that made you go, oh, my God, this guy he needs 19 touches. You know what I mean? And, it was bad. Devin Singletary looked awesome. Devin Singletary on the 14-yard touchdown he hit the outside, ran up the left side. It was great blocking. We have a center. I mean, Mitch Morris is a beast. That dude is no joke. I watched him lay like 3 or 4 guys out in this game, and it was exciting to watch. I'm a Bills fan, so, I got very happy watching that. But Mitch Morris is an animal. Like, he makes some holes. Devin Singletary looked very good. He had a 20-yard was his long. Let me see. He had a 20-yard carry was his long for the day. You scored on a 14-yard touchdown. He only had 6 carries for 57 yards. He actually would have had more. He actually got called. He actually had like a 14 or 15-yard gain, called back by a holding call. So he would have had something like 60, 70, 65 yards, something like that, 75 yards total after that. But in the passing game, John Brown looked awesome. John Brown had another 11 target game. 7 for 72. Cole Beasley, Cole Beasley made some plays in this game that were like, oh my God, I'm so happy we got this dude. He had a 51-yard catch in the second half that was just like, oh man, I was really excited to see. Cole Beasley in this offense is basically what the Cowboys were doing with him in their offense, except better. He is the third down guy that they're going to get first downs, and he's getting first downs, but he's also breaking runs, getting more yardage after the plays. And the rest of the passing game, there's not really anybody else that I would tote. Zay Jones was somebody that I was saying that I might be good this year. I was high on him of all the guys, and he was just terrible. He dropped 2 passes in this game. He just, I think they only recorded him for 1 drop, but he actually had 2 drops. And other than that, on the Bills side of the ball, if Josh Allen's on your waiver wire, you have, Drew Brees. He went down. Ben Roethlisberger, he went down. I wouldn't mind picking up, Josh Allen for the next couple of weeks until Brees gets back. On the Giants side of the ball, Saquon is just a complete animal. Eli Manning is trash.
Saquon's the only starter, I think, on the Giants right now.
Well, Evan Ingram.
Oh, Evan Ingram. I forgot about it.
Evan Ingram was just really shut down in this game. I think the Buffalo Bills really made it a point to make sure that Evan didn't get off. There was actually a couple of plays where Tre'Davious White moved down to him. He was just being, bracketed by linebacker and safety. And then, a couple of plays where, it was 3rd and long. They put Tre'Davious on him just to make sure that he wasn't getting off the line of scrimmage all that easy. So, there was a couple times in this game that he just, it wasn't until the 4th quarter that he caught the 33-yard pass, and it was like 4 minutes left, and they were just trying to score anything that they could. But, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about Evan. I told you guys this is a tough matchup. I told you guys in the beginning of the week before we even started that this was going to be a tough matchup. And then everybody else, TJ Jones caught a touchdown. That was garbage. Saquon had 3 for 28 in the passing game, but Benny Fowler had 5 for 51. There's not really anybody in this passing game that I would tell you to go get. So the 2 guys that you're really starting in this offense are Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley, and that's it, unfortunately. Oh yeah, and the Bills defense, if they're on your waiver wire, you need to get them.
Yeah, that's all I was going to add is that the Bills defense is definitely somebody that a defense that you should be considering.
Yeah, they should be rostered in 100% of leagues, period.
All right. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps that one up. Nothing more to add. So next on the list is the Steelers and Seahawks. This one right here was a little bit hard to watch once Ben went out of the game. I mean, Mason Rudolph did the best job that he could to keep them in it, but Russell Wilson's just an animal. Russell Wilson was doing everything he was going to do to make plays to win this game. Broke a couple runs at the end that solidified first downs and, got him to run out the clock, and threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the process. Russell Wilson, I really like what I saw from Seattle, because you haven't really, they pretty much said that we're a ground and pound team last year. That's literally what they did. I think they saw this week that, despite a couple good runs from Rashad Penny and I think they kind of knew that their way to beat Pittsburgh was going to be through the air, because Pittsburgh's pass defense is not very good and their run defense is a lot better. So I think this was a game where they just kind of opened it up and said, all right, we're going to put this on Russ's shoulders and let Russ kind of, bring this one home for us. And he did that. Like I said, it was good to see Russell do that, because last year he was mostly just a guy that, they got into the red zone, he threw a touchdown, but they basically had Carson carrying him down the field the whole time. Penny, 10 for 62, had the long 37-yard touchdown run. He had a wide open hole in that run, wide open hole. Chris Carson, 15 for 60 yards. Overall, I didn't think Carson really got off. One of his runs were 21 yards. That literally leaves him at 14 for 39 for the rest of the game. So, that one long run made his day look a lot better. But like I said, Pittsburgh's D is just much better against the run than the pass. Tyler Lockett was a target machine in this game, had 10 catches for 79 yards. He was literally, they were using him all over the field, middle of the field, outside, deep throats. They were throwing him constantly. And DK
Kev,
Metcalf
real quick, Kev, would you say that Tyler Lockett is the number one for the Seahawks?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody questioned that coming into the year at all.
Oh no, we had somebody on the listener league trying to say that he was definitely not going to be the number one on this team. So I just
who can you put ahead of him though?
He was.
I don't know, dog.
Yeah, he. I don't know. I don't even understand that. But it was good to see DK Metcalf has had a couple really good games in a row, just being kind of a deep threat down the field. This one, he winds up getting into the end zone. So, he's put up 60 yards and a touchdown. Last week, I think he had 3 for 80. Or 4 for 80 or something like that. So, they're really using DK Metcalf as their second receiver and a nice deep threat down the field. He's a guy that I think you can throw into your flex spot at any time and pretty much feel pretty comfortable, especially once bye weeks start to come around. From the Steelers side of the ball, Ben went down, and I'm going to say this. They did not lose this game because Ben went down. Because Ben was not very good himself in the beginning. He was very inaccurate. His elbow was clearly bothering him, and it was good that he kind of is getting this issue taken care of, because he just didn't look good out there. And I don't know if this affected him at all last week. I mean, last week they just got bum rushed by the Patriots, and he still couldn't complete anything. But in this game, Mason Rudolph came in, did a solid job trying to lead him back as best as he could, but he just couldn't top Russ. One thing I will say is, if I own Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not really too worried. He was targeting Juju a ton. Juju only had 8 targets in the game, but I feel like a lot of them came from Rudolph in the second half, because there was times where he was just forcing the ball, even on the 2-point conversion that he threw. Like, he had guys wide open and was looking at Juju the whole time on that play. They could have converted that 2-point conversion to tie the game up, but he was just eyeing Juju and wasn't going to not throw it to anybody else. James Conner gets the touchdown to salvage his day, but James Conner just we tried to tell you guys that this guy was like a touchdown or bust guy, and it's literally what he is. I mean, he is 3 yards and a cloud of dust. He don't break anything. He breaks no runs that are really that long. Vance McDonald in this game winds up catching both of the touchdowns, has a really good day, 7 for 38 with the 2 touchdowns. But, most of his passes were really just, dink and dunk checkdowns. The one he wound up, being able to, stretch it up the field and get into the end zone on the one. But, most of his catches were just check down 5-yard catches anyway. None of the receivers really got off. To me, waiver wire wise, obviously if Jalen Samuels is out there, I think you got to add him, because, Connor apparently looks like he might be able to play next week, but you just never know when Connor's going to go out, especially if you own James Conner. I think you need to own Jalen Samuels. I'm not rostering Mason Rudolph. And, from the Pittsburgh side of the ball, if it ain't Juju, Juju or Vance McDonald, I don't want to start them, because, the rest of those guys are going to be pretty useless while Mason Rudolph is the quarterback. From the Seahawks side of the ball, CJ Prosay's got a little bit of work in the passing game, but not too much. Will Dissly had 2 touchdowns in this game. I definitely think he is a solid backup tight end for you, and somebody you probably can throw in there once in a while if your tight end has a bad matchup. So I definitely would pick up Will Dissly and throw him on your team if he's on the waiver wire.
Yeah, real quick. Vance McDonald did not become relevant until Mason Rudolph came in the game. I just want to say that.
He literally didn't.
Yeah.
It
So
was all checkdowns. That's what I was saying. He's all checkdowns, little 5-yard passes to Vance.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like the reason we didn't like Vance was because Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback. Now that Mason Rudolph is the quarterback, I like Vance a whole lot more.
Oh yeah, because it's just check down city, and if he's going to get, he's going to have that ability to get into the end zone every time.
Definitely.
So next game we'll get into is the Chiefs and Raiders.
Chiefs and Raiders, basically, Oakland they were roaring for that first quarter. That's for sure. They get off to a 10-0 start. Derek Carr has a really nice touchdown pass to Terrell Williams. And then the second quarter happened, and Mahomes happened. And that's pretty much what the game was. That game was all in the second quarter, and it was all Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes threw for like 300 yards in that second quarter. He went for 443 on the day, 4 touchdowns, all in that second quarter. The run game was pretty stale I know both of these guys were beat up. They both left the game, McCoy and Williams. McCoy had 11 for 23. Williams had 9 for 8. Williams actually had a good receiving game. He had 3 for 48, getting checkdowns. So he had a good receiving game. But yeah, basically, they knew they weren't getting anything going with the run, so they started to do the air attack, and it worked. I mean, Demarcus Robinson, he burned them. And, I looked up his stats because I was like, who is this guy? And it's his third year with the Chiefs, 2017, 2018. He had a smidge over 20 receptions each year and a little over 200 yards. So not very relevant, but, without Hill in there, he got his snaps count up, and he took full advantage of it. And he went for 172 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was the highlight of the game besides Mahomes. Kelsey was Kelsey, 7 grabs, 107 and a touchdown. McCall Hardman had a decent game, 4 catches, 61 and a touchdown. I mean, you're pretty much, if you got any of these, where Hardman, we always say, is hit or miss. He's an option at flex once in a blue moon, but Watkins went for 6 and 49, but I mean, he had that monster game last week, and each week with this offense, someone else can go.
And Sammy had 13 targets in the game, so it was
they were still looking for him. As far as the second half went, there was no points scored, and Derek Carr. I mean, I played him over Kyler Murray. He didn't really. I mean, think he got like 5 less points than Murray, so it wouldn't have really mattered anyway. I played that Patriots defense in our league. They put 52 on me. That was brutal. But Derek Carr, every time they drove that ball down and he had a shot to get this game within reach. He threw the interception on the one play when they were on the 2. Terrell Williams. I mean, I think they miscommunication there where Terrell was trying to, I guess, maybe do back shoulder, and he threw it corner. That was picked off. So Derek Carr did not look good. I mean, he looked good on that touchdown drive, and other than that, he did not look good. He 198 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Josh Jacobs looked awesome again. 1 yard shy of 100, on 12 carries. He ripped off a 51-yarder. So he looked. I mean, he was the offense for Oakland, and surprisingly, we thought this was going to be more air attack for Oakland because Kansas City's defense normally tends to get in the shootouts with teams, and teams have to throw against them because Kansas City did what Kansas City does in the second quarter, and they scored points in bunches. But their defense was very, very, very good. They shut down Derek Carr. They made him make mistakes. Jacobs got his yards, but never hurt him. Never got the end zone. So basically, Darren Waller was 6 for 63. Terrell Williams had the touchdown, but 5 for 46, and that's about it on the Oakland side. As far as waiver wires go, guess we got to hear about what's going to happen with Damian Williams and McCoy. I mean, maybe Darwin Thompson's an option if one or both of those guys can't go. I don't know if anyone dropped Darwin Thompson after he saw no action last week. More than likely you drafted him so high, not high, but if you drafted him, you might have kept him after only 1 week. But if he's available, he might be an option. That's good. Like I said, that's going to come down to the news and how these two progress over the next week. And Demarcus Robinson, I think as long as Tyreek Hill is out, if Robinson's going to get snaps, he's gonna get production. I mean, Mahomes' arm is unreal, and he can make throws that I'm going to say it that nobody else can. Now I'm going to put Aaron Rodgers in that conversation too. He just has an ability to just put balls in tight windows with touch and velocity. So I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about Demarcus Robinson's big day. I mean, I more a lot of times just one big day. If a guy's a third year guy and one big day doesn't really mean that. I mean, he's going to be picked up in waiver wires everywhere, but I think it is relevant because of the team we're talking about.
Yeah, for me, I would rather have McCole Hardman. You know what I mean?
Me too. I agree.
Yeah, McCole Hardman to me is the best waiver wire pickup of the week. If he is available in your leagues, you must go get him. Demarcus Robinson, I think it just was a matchup thing. Watching that game, Conley I believe it was Conley that was covering him, just couldn't cover him. They threw the same pass on like four different formations, but the exact same, mini post, and he was just wide open, like easy pitch and catch. I don't like having takes like this, especially the third year of Patrick Mahomes' career. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen. He's the best. Okay, let me rephrase that. He's the best deep ball quarterback I've ever seen. He throws the best deep ball of any quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. He throws it and literally it lands right where you want it to, like right in the receiver's hands and numbers. It's an easy ball to catch, and it looks like he's just flicking his wrist to get it down there. Like, it's just insane. But Demarcus Robinson, I would pick him up, but McCole Hardman is definitely the guy. If you're spending fab money, I would spend a lot more money on McCole Hardman. I spend 10-15% of my total fab to get him on my team and feel very confident about it. As long as Tyreek Hill is out, to me, McCole Hardman's the guy I want.
All right, so we have some breaking news. The Steelers are trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So the Steelers have traded. Damn, the freaking notification just disappeared. It ain't gonna be up there, but the Steelers have traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So that's where the Dolphins' corner will now wind up.
There you go.
All right. So the next game we are going to get into is. Did you do Jaguars Texans, Steve?
No.
What other games did you do? You did.
I did
Saints,
Jaguars
Rams.
Texans. Are you asking me if I did that game or if we talked about it? Yeah, I did that game. I watched that one.
Yeah, that's the one we'll get into next.
All right. So Jaguars Texans, the score 12-13. It doesn't sound like it was a very interesting game, but it was a very fun game to watch. The one big takeaway that I will take, we all know how good Deshaun Watson is. He struggled in this game, but last year, I sat him this week, but I have Jackson also in that league, so I play Jackson over him. But if you look at his numbers against the Jaguars, they just haven't been good. He struggles against the Jaguars, so if you had him, you definitely started him. You dropped him, you drafted him where you drafted him. But in this game, the main takeaway I will take is Gardner Minshew looked really good. You know what I mean? He was under pressure a lot in this game. He was running for his life half the game. J.J. Watt looked like he wanted to tear his head off every time he got back there. J.J. was playing mean, bro. J.J. looked like he wanted to hurt this dude. And it was because he was just getting out of the pocket and running for first downs, a lot. So I think it was, just pissing him off. I think it was pissing J.J. off. But when J.J. got to him, he really wanted to hurt this dude. But, Gardner Minshew looked good. He didn't throw any picks in this game. He was 23 for 33. He had 6 carries for 56 yards. He is not the quintessential pocket passer. He's not the guy that's going to sit back there and pick you apart. But he makes plays, and I think he's going to be just fine. Is he better than Nick Foles passing-wise? No. I think Nick is probably a little bit better. But Gardner Minshew is going to keep this offense on track, and I think you can be a little more confident. And I know Leonard Fournette only had 15 for 47, but he played against a really good Texans run defense. So Chris Conley was 4 for 73, somebody that we talked about in the preseason that I liked. I just thought he could get some play, and he had 5 targets. So Chris Conley, if he's on your waiver wire, he's definitely somebody that I would pick up as a number 4 wide receiver, and use him for the bye weeks that are getting ready to start coming week 4. DJ Chark, he looked good. He was getting open, and DJ is known for his long speed, but he was getting open 10, 12 yards down the field and making some cuts and just getting open, getting the ball. So DJ Chark, someone I'm very confident in. Also 7 for 55 and a touchdown, also had 9 targets. Leonard Fournette, in target wise, he had 6 targets and 4 for 40. So he's well on his way to 60 catches this year. And if he gets 60 catches plus his normal workload, he's going to be close to a number 1 running back and somebody that Dan has been toting a lot. I agree. I think that Leonard Fournette could be very good. This was just a really tough matchup. So that's it on the Texans side of the ball for guys that I want to talk about. On the Jaguar side of the ball. On the Texans side of the ball, Carlos Hyde, man. Carlos Hyde, everyone wrote him off. I think everybody said Carlos Hyde is just no good, and that's it. But Carlos Hyde had 20 for 90, 4.5 yards per carry. You can't ask for much more than that. And actually, the end of this game actually hurt his carries because he got 3 straight carries in the fourth quarter and was stopped for 1 yard on 3 carries. So really, if you take those 3 carries away, 17 for 89. So he had a good game. Duke Johnson is the biggest loser in this game to me. Only had 6 carries. He had 31 yards, so he didn't look bad on his carries. But I think the biggest takeaway was he only had 1 target. 1 target, no catches. That is a big deal. Duke Johnson to me is the clear winner in this backfield and the guy that I want on this Texans team. Duke is just a guy that I would still hold on to.
You mean Carlos Hyde, right?
Yeah, Carlos Hyde. Yeah,
Okay.
Carlos Hyde is definitely the number 1 on this team. Duke Johnson is definitely a guy that I would hold on to, but if he has another outing or two looking like this, then he's just somebody that's literally Carlos Hyde's handcuff at this point. I wouldn't worry about D-Hop. You can't worry about D-Hop. Will Fuller, I know a lot of people are worried about Will Fuller, but Will Fuller, Watson missed him on 2 deep throws that would have made his numbers so much better. He missed him on like a 9 route on the right side of the field in I think it was the middle of the fourth quarter. That would have probably been a 70-yard touchdown. That would have made his day huge. But Will Fuller, I'm not even attempting to drop Will Fuller. I really like Will Fuller. Kenny Stills, 2 for 38 in this game. He looked good. He's going to get more acclimated into this offense, and he's going to start being better and better. Kiki QT is also, another loser for me. Kiki is not somebody that you can roster right now. You might as well just drop him. If you have him on your roster, just drop him and look for somebody else. And that's about it for me. So, waiver wire guys, Kenny Stills I would definitely pick up if he's on your waiver wire. He's starting to get more and more involved, as he learns this playbook. And that's about it for this game for me.
I do want to ask you, Steve, do you think it's better to own D.D. Westbrook or DJ Chark right now in the Jaguars offense? Considering with Gardner Minshew and his play style compared to Nick Foles.
See, D.D. did get a lot of he got 5 targets in this game. D.D. I would rather have Chark right now, but I think as Gardner, I wouldn't drop D.D. yet. I would give it another week or two, until at least week 4, to see, what he does next week, because he was throwing at him. It just, he wasn't getting open. Dede, there was one play where he threw it way over his head that probably would have been like a 30-yard catch. But other than that, there was a lot of, out routes and things like that, Dede was just defended. AJ Aboye, did a good job on Dede. I mean, not AJ boy. What is his name on the Texans?
Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah,
Or,
no. I can't remember his name. It's gonna bother me, but he did a good job on DD for most of the game. You know what I mean? Other than that 30-yard pass downfield that just went completely over his head. They did a good job on DD. So I would hold off on dropping DD. Don't drop DD yet.
All right. So I will get into the Cowboys and Redskins. This is the game that was, I mean, even the score wound up being closer than what it really was. I feel like, Dallas kind of just owned this game the whole time. There was times where it became like a one-score game. After the end of the third quarter, it was a one-score game. But you could just tell that Dallas was kind of in control. Dak, looked really good again, 26 for 30, 269, 3 touchdowns. Zeke winds up being the bell cow once again. Last week, Tony Pollard saw a little bit more work than what Zeke owners would have liked. This week, Zeke comes back and gets 23 carries, 111 yards, gets into the end zone. So it was good to see Zeke back as the, as the primary back, and no Tony Pollard as much. From the receiving side, Amari Cooper gets the touchdown to salvage his day. And see, this was my feeling with Amari Cooper. Yeah, he had that great week one, but these are the type of games where you look at Amari Cooper and you're like, man, I know you have, Norman really didn't shadow him too much in this game. Norman's not really a shadower. He hasn't really been since he's gone to Washington. He kind of just sticks on his side of the field. And, this is, like I said, 5 targets in the game, four catches for 44. Like I see, he does get the touchdown, but, you would think going up against Washington, you're going to expect a better game. And, once again, this is my thing with Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup actually 6 for 68 had, relatively good game. Didn't get in the end zone. Dak kind of spread the ball around a lot in this one. If 5 guys that had at least 4 catches. Witten had 4 catches, Cooper 4, Gallup 4, Randall Cobb 5. He had guys catching the ball, spreading it around. Waiver wire for the Dallas Cowboys. Devin Smith is now a waiver wire ad with Michael Gallup going out. 3 catches for 74 yards and got, had a 51-yard touchdown. He's definitely a guy, if I, with the way Dak's been throwing the ball and, with Michael Gallup going down for a couple weeks, I think, Devin Smith is probably a pretty good waiver wire guy to add. From the Redskins side of the ball, Case Keenum really did not look too bad. It wasn't terrible, but, he was similar. He was kind of a game manager, went through the ball a ton, but was very, accurate, really a lot of checkdowns, a lot of short passes, only 6 yards per completion, does get two touchdowns and doesn't have any picks. AP in this game got the touchdown, but was very ineffective. If you look at AP's, fantasy numbers, you're like, oh, he got me 9 points. He was great. He was not very good. He, only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Just like I said, he got into the end zone. Terry McLaurin, this was a guy I watched because I actually started him in one of my leagues this week. I started him in our league, as a matter of fact. And I was nervous in the first half because Terry McLaurin was shut out. And it really wasn't until garbage time where Terry McLaurin started to catch on. Towards the end of the third quarter, I think one drive, he had 2 straight catches for 36 yards. And at the end of the game, they scored in garbage time, and they threw 3 straight balls to him where they just, for some reason, Terry McLaurin had to score that touchdown because, they just threw the ball to him 3 straight times on the goal line. Chris Thompson had a little bit of work out of the backfield. Trey Quinn, 4 for 36, had 7 targets, but, overall, to me, Terry McLaurin, if he's still in your waiver wire, is definitely a guy I would add because he's, highly targeted in this offense, and they're going to have to throw to catch up in a lot of games at this point. Outside of that, Chris Thompson, we talked about last week. Both of these guys we talked about last week on the waiver wire. So if they're still on there, I would go get both of those guys. But yeah, this was a game where you could just tell Dallas had control of it the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, not too much
All
to
right.
add. I do want to say that Chris Thompson, I know he had 8 targets in that game for, 5 for 48. He is definitely a big part of this offense. So, if
Yep.
he's on your waiver wire, and Trey Quinn, another guy that I like, seem to get a lot of targets every week in this offense. Like Kev said, they're going to be down a lot. So,
They're gonna have to throw a lot.
yeah, real quick, the Browns suck. I just want to put that out there. They suck. They are terrible. All right, continue.
All hype. All hype.
I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know how is this score still 16-3.
Dude, yo, the Jets have 13 yards passing total. Like,
Yeah,
are you kidding me right
I
now?
figured that once Simeon went out. I mean, it was bad when Simeon was in there. Once Luke Falk went into the game, I knew it was just
They
going to
they
get
signed
worse.
him off the practice squad yesterday.
Dude,
Uh,
this team is just atrocious. I'm sorry, Jets fans. Sorry, not sorry.
all right, Bears Broncos. Dan, 3 more games left.
We'll be quick with this one. We'll get into a couple
Yeah,
better
ain't too
ones.
much fantasy in this one.
Yeah, well, there's really not a whole lot of relevant. The Bears, their offenses, they suck. I'm sorry, Trubisky's painful to watch at times. I mean, this guy played really good during a good stretch last year, and he 120 yards. I mean, he didn't throw any interceptions, but he didn't throw any touchdowns. They're just so stagnant. The only good takeaway I can get, about this Bears offense was that I've been preaching since last Friday, from the first game of the season that they have to use Montgomery more, and they did. They gave him the ball 18 times. He had, nothing crazy. He had 62 yards and a touchdown, but 62 yards against the Denver, Vic Fangio Denver defense is pretty good. So nobody else relevant at all on the Bears. A-Rob 441. Patterson actually had 2 carries for 50 yards. He broke a long one. They did not. I mean, as much as they used Davis in that first game, they gave him the ball 3 times for 1 yard. Like he didn't even exist. And Cohen, where was he at? Yeah, he had 2 catches for 7 yards and 4 rushes for 18 yards. I mean, it's just when you have a guy that's that talented, I find it hard to believe that you really aren't making him a part of your offense almost on the every drive. All right, so as far as the game goes, Chicago did pull off the win. This was a defensive game like I expected. 2 of the best.
That
in the
was
league.
bullshit too. That clock ran out.
Yeah,
And
it
they
did run
gave
out.
that
They
game.
they
They
robbed
gave
them.
the game to Chicago. They gave the game to Chicago twice.
Yep.
They gave the game when on the Chubb, Bradley Chubb, passing it or
Oh,
the passer call, 'cause
roughing the passer. Yeah,
that was bold. There was
That
no
was
roughing the
brutal,
passer
too.
on that. That was as clean of a hit as you will ever see.
you're absolutely
And
correct. I
and
totally
then-
agree on that.
and then the last play where, I mean, I watched it instant replay like 3 times, and he did get down, but whether or not someone called a timeout there with 1 second, I don't know. I mean, they gave him the timeout. I mean, his knees were down with 1 second left. But who knows where that timeout came in from? So they gave it to him. And then you have the Bears, who can't kick a 30-yard field goal last year, end up booting a bunch of 50-yarders, and poor Nick Fangio dies by the field goal last year and dies by the field goal this year. It's just just relevant, as far as Broncos go. Flacco had a decent game, 292, a touchdown and a pick. Freeman on this game was the better running back, slightly better than Lindsey. He had 11 for 54, 5 for 48 catching. Lindsey 13 for 36, 4 for 30 catching. So Freeman went over 100 all-purpose yards. Neither of those guys got in the end zone. Only touchdown for them was Sanders there late in the game. He had a beautiful catch there. The knee came down in the corner of the end zone. And then they, actually this is where they went up before that last drive, which I just talked about. They missed the extra point. They called the penalty on that, which, then they decided to go for the 2. They little out route to Sanders again and got the 2, put them up by 2. And then what I just explained went down. Sutton, who had the big week last week, only had 4 for 40. Noah Fant through 2 weeks doesn't look like he's very relative. There's a lot of better tight ends out there having better weeks, so I don't really think you have to look much at Noah Fant until he shows that he's relative. So waiver wire. I got nobody on waiver wire for this game. You're definitely not getting anybody.
I was gonna say,
No,
I don't
there's
think you
nobody.
really. There ain't nobody in that game.
Yeah.
I'll just add that I love Emmanuel Sanders. I
Yes.
just love that guy as a player.
11 catches, 13 target. I mean, he's all over the place. He is an awesome receiver. He runs seam routes with the best of them. He runs out routes. He runs every route. He's just a great route runner.
Very good player.
All right, Saints Rams.
All right, this is going to be quick because Drew Brees got hurt in this game, as we all know. And what I will say, I mean, I'm not going to break this game down crazy. This was one of the primetime games. I mean, this was everywhere. Most people watch this game. But what I will say about this game is Teddy Bridgewater just got thrown in the game. He probably gets 0 reps with the ones. So you can't take this game and think that Teddy was terrible because, he was 17 for 30, but he probably has not run with the ones basically at all. In the preseason, I kept hearing them say, oh, yeah, Teddy had a lot of touches in the preseason, but that doesn't count. I mean, like he's not getting practice time with the ones. So I don't care how much preseason he has. I mean, the guys that he's playing with are not the guys he played with in the preseason. So blah. You know what I mean? All the guys who were saying that I don't even know who the hell the team was. I actually shut off the volume after like 10 minutes into the game because as soon as Breeze got hurt, they just were going on about Teddy playing the whole preseason and it just annoyed me, so I turned it off. But, Alvin Kamara, 13 for 45. Basically, as soon as Breeze went down, they just decided, no Breeze, we're going to completely shut down Alvin Kamara. And that's what they did. They made it a point to make sure he didn't do anything. And Michael Thomas, you're still starting. He had 1 target, 1 catch with Drew Brees, and the rest of his 9 catches for 89 yards were with, Teddy. Jared Cook had 7 targets in this game. He was just... He was getting open and just dropping passes or just being overthrown. I mean, that's basically what happened in this game. He had 1 catch. He had 1, catch. Drew Brees hit him basically right in the numbers. He got smashed by 2 different defenders. The ball popped up. They grabbed it and it was an interception. So that kind of, did whatever. But, Jared Cook is not a guy that I would give up on just yet. I know a lot of people are getting ready to drop him, but, he was targeted 7 times in this game. He was only targeted by Breeze once, so 6 more times by Teddy. And, all of his catches came from Teddy. So his 2 catches for 25 yards came from Teddy. And, it'll be better. Odell Beckham is just an animal. He is just ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, on the Rams side of the ball, Cooper Kupp is probably my favorite wide receiver. I just love Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean? He is not the best wide receiver in the league, but he is just amazing. I love Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean? He on that catch and run, 70 yards or whatever it was, that dude he fought for every single one of those yards, dude. He just was not going to go down, and they took him down literally at the inch line. Todd Gurley in this game, I know a lot of people want to know about Todd Gurley. He had 16 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown in this game. The Saints, wanted to make sure that they took Todd away, and they did that. They did a good job of it. But Todd also had 3 catches for 4 yards. They made it a point to try to take him away, and they did a good job of that. 19 touches from Todd Gurley. I'll take that every single week, and, I love it. So, with the rest of the guys, Robert Woods looked good in this game. He had a touchdown called back on a holding call, which would have made his day a whole lot better. But, it is what it is. Brandon Cooks is just... I love Brandon Cooks too. I think he's just a really good player. 3 for 74 and a touchdown in this game on 4 targets. The touchdown pass, Jared Goff was not very good in this game, but I'll tell you what, that touchdown pass was a really, really good throw and catch by Cook. Excuse me. But yeah, Jared Cook put it right on the money, and Cook, you need really strong hands to be able to grab that and bring it in. And that's about it for this game. There's not too much to be said. The Rams defense, I think because of Breeze going out, really had a good game in this game, but I wouldn't say they were anything really super special. Just a good defense going up against a quarterback that hadn't gotten many snaps with the ones. And that's it for me. There's not really anybody in this game that I'm picking up. Traquan Smith, if you're super desperate, is a guy. And then on the Rams side of the ball, it's the usual suspects. There's not been anybody really in this game that I'm picking up.
Would you take a shot on Teddy if you needed a QB?
No, just because Josh Allen is only 48% owned, and there's a couple other quarterbacks that I would rather have than Teddy. But I if you are desperate need, like you're in a league that 2 QB league, I would definitely pick him up.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so last game of the day, the nightcap, the Eagles and Falcons, and this one ripped my heart out. So in this game, I think one of the things you saw is without these weapons, without Alshon, without Deshaun Jackson, Carson Wentz is really restricted. His backup receivers really didn't give him much help. Matt Collins only had, he wound up catching 5 for 50, but to me, I didn't see him flash off the page like that. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, he's still got some growing to do, you can tell. Ertz and Aguilar were ultra targeted in this game. Ertz saw 16 targets. Aguilar saw 11 because they just have the most familiarity with Carson, obviously. Looking at Alshon's injury, Aguilar might be a guy you want to add if you need some help at receiver, because he was just targeted like crazy. He dropped the
game-winning,
most beautiful pass I've ever, one of the most beautiful passes you can throw right down the sideline, right into his breadbasket, where he would have had 5 yards of separation and probably would have took it to the house, but makes it up on the next play where he catches it between 2 defenders getting ready to get smacked. I don't understand it. From the running game on the Eagles, I don't think you can start anyone. To me, they're not using Jordan Howard at all. This was a game that was relatively close. I don't think they needed to abandon the run. And, Howard only saw 8 carries for 18 yards. And to me, Howard is a guy you got to kind of run 17, 18 times to get him going. And they're just not doing it that way. So Miles Sanders, he's another one, got a lot of growing to do, man. He's got to learn to hit that hole. He's bouncing everything to the outside, trying to make a home run on every play. And, until he learns that to just, move forward instead of side to side, no one in this running game is going to be very effective. Obviously, Ertz and Wentz, you're starting both of those guys every week. And you got to pay attention to what happens with Deshaun next week. Deshaun had a groin injury, but supposedly he could be good for next week. From the Falcons side of the ball, Matt Ryan was a gunslinger, in this game. And gunslingers will, make great plays and bad plays. And so in this game, there was a lot of that from Matt Ryan. Obviously he had, he missed a couple deep throws to receivers, but then hit the long one to Calvin Ridley where, Ronald Darby was just getting burnt all night for some reason. I don't know what Ronald Darby was doing, but he was just getting burnt. He literally got burnt on 3 straight post plays, and it wasn't even double moves. It was just straight post plays.
Took too much Adderall, just slowed the world down.
The rushing game for Atlanta, Devontae Freeman does not look good to me. He looks slow. And, if you're a Devontae Freeman owner, he's had a couple really hard matchups. Philly's a good run defense. Minnesota's a good run defense, but, Aaron Jones seemed to do good last week this week against Minnesota. So, I would be worried if I was a Freeman owner. To me, Calvin Ridley really surprised me in this game. He showed a lot. He got 10 targets, was 8 for 105, and he was just all over the place. Julio obviously had the big one, the game winner, But he was kind of locked down. They kind of doubled him a lot in this game, and his game was kind of salvaged by that long touchdown. He did have another touchdown earlier, but without that 54-yard touchdown pass, he's literally 4 for 52, which is a very, very average game for Julio Jones. Ridley was kind of the main spotlight in the passing game. Hooper got 6 targets, 4 for 34. So, it wasn't like, he wasn't like he was non-existent out there, but he wasn't, ultra targeted as well. This was really just the Calvin Ridley and the Calvin Ridley Julio Jones show from the Falcons side of the ball. As far as waiver wires go, if Hooper's still out there, I think he's 84% owned. So I doubt he's on your waiver wire, but he's definitely a guy I would add if he is. And like I said, Nelson Aguilar, if, any of these receivers are going to be injured for the Eagles for a long stretch of time. I think, Jeffrey's looking at a 2 or 3 game absence. So Aguilar's probably a guy I would add if you needed receiver help.
So as far as you pretty much touched on a lot of stuff, is I guess the only thing I should, Eagles defense, man. I mean, we were high going into the season, and they're pretty much, every aspect of the Eagles defense is what we hoped for and feared. They are as tough up front as anybody in the league is, stopping the run, and they are bad in the secondary. The only thing that for me that saved that game was that, Schwartz just started setting the house late, when he knew that the Eagles basically were decimated at receiver. He had to make plays happen, on the defensive end and create turnovers. So he just, he set the house, I would say 60-75% of the time that second half. It was ridiculous. And, it
worked.
It worked.
That's how they got back into it.
Aside from the Julio Jones play late in the game, it worked.
And there was a block in the back on that play.
What's that?
There was a block in the back on that play too.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it did. It got them back in the game and, created some turnovers. And, the Eagles were in a position to win that game. If that ball doesn't bounce off of Aguilar's hands, you never know what Atlanta does with that, that last 1 minute drive. They might kick a field goal. They might not, and game's over, taking overtime. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of this, and Aguilar is a definite pickup if Alshon's out for an extended period of time. They're going to definitely key in on Jackson being back, and Aguilar, he'll be relative.
Yep. All right, so that is it for today's podcast. Don't forget to check out the website, www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content, articles, blogs, player profiles,
cornerback, wide receiver matchups,
waiver wire columns. We got it all on there. And of course, you can subscribe to our VIP access, get a little daily fantasy info, and you can get the cheat codes. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Real quick, before we sign off, we smashed this week on DFS, just so everybody knows. We did very well.
Yes. Me and Steve both placed in a lot of 50-50s. Steve killed them. Basically doubled his money this week, and I made a few dollars as well. So, me and Steve did very well on DFS this week.
Yes, sir. So check out that DFS pod, and peace out, y'all.
All right, till next time, guys.